from the time that they pronounced me dead was a good 45 minutes.
They cut my clothes and then they paddled my heart because my heart had stopped. And I could see people screaming and crying, but I didn't realize that was actually my physical body because I was somewhere else.
The only thing that I could feel, if you can imagine, absolute love and peace. There wasn't anything else to be felt.
I was greeted by people I'd known in the past.
I'm back home again.
Incredibly safe and felt at home.
Welcome to Roundtrip Death, everybody. We have a fun guest today, Renée Martine, coming to us from Texas. How are you, Renée?
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, you've got an interesting story, and I think it's a good time to remind people that every NDE is different. Oh, I don't need to remind people. I say that all the time. But yours happened at a young age, so memories are limited. The most important part is the trajectory that it set you on your life from there. So we'll be going through all that. But if you don't mind, if you could just take 1 minute and just tell us a little bit about Renée, and that can be anything from where you live or your family or anything so we can get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I just moved from Montana to Texas to be closest to one of my daughters. I have 2 girls, and my youngest she just recently married, and so I came here to be a little bit closer. And she's in her 30s, early 30s. My oldest daughter is in Northern California, where she's given me 2 beautiful granddaughters. So she's in her late 30s. So just the 2 girls and me. It's just me solo, I've been going through so many changes and have been doing a lot of creative things that I never thought I would ever do. So the last, I'd say, at least 15 years, I've been doing art. I've been doing a lot of art. It kind of came out of a death, my brother's death. So I've been doing that. It's been going great. Right now, I'm in 10th place for the Johnny Depp competition that's going on. So I have to be in top 10 to make it to the next round. So kind of fingers crossed. We'll see how that goes. And I've also been writing my whole life. I'd love to write. Photography. I do a lot of photography. I stay busy doing a lot of creative stuff.
Is that one of your paintings behind you there?
Yeah, it's acrylic pour in the background, and then the trees are hot glue. So they have a nice texture to them. So everything goes behind it, and then the tree goes over top. So, yeah, that's a really fun piece.
Well, the big question that I have for you is this. How do you like your new son-in-law?
He's great. But both my girls, this is their round 2. So they definitely did it right the second time around for both of them. They're in love with each other, and that's really where it should be, But when you're young, and I did that because I married young, and divorce was a blessing for me. But yeah, he's great. Both of them are.
Well, I want to go ahead and jump right into it. Take us back to when you were just a little girl. Wow, you had kind of a rough upbringing family-wise. I don't know how much of that you want to tell us about, but if you feel like it, go ahead and let's lead up to the fateful day.
Yeah, so I'll try to nutshell it. I'm going to do a little bit before what actually happened. So I recently turned 60 in January, and I needed to write a story. I just needed to get my life out on paper, and I don't know why. I wasn't compelled to do it, but I just felt like I needed to. I was in January. And I started with age 5, but as I started writing the story, I started remembering things that my uncle told me. Uncle by friendship. He was my dad's best friend. He started telling me stories. My brother used to tell me stories about things. And I never put the 2 together really until I wrote it all out on paper. And it was the most amazing thing I could have given myself, was to write all the trauma out rather than just remember it here and there. And I never talked about it. Nobody wants to know about it. It's kind of depressing. So anyway, my father, born and raised Catholic, was apparently, I found out later, that he was hand-selected by a Mexican mafia leader to be a soldier fighter. His dad, my grandpa, was a Mexican boxer in Mexico. They're all from Mexico. U.S. scouted him. and said, hey, come and fight for the United States. So that's how they got to the United States. I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree because he was a good fighter. And I used to hear that all the time from his brother. I just never thought anything of it. It's just kind of like people talking, until I started putting all pieces together.
And a good fighter can be a positive thing. An Olympic boxer, that kind of thing. Great.
Yeah. I mean, my grandpa was a really good boxer. He won a lot of champions in Mexico. I don't know how many he did here, but he boxed. I don't know how long he boxed in the United States, but he was a professional boxer. He wasn't a street fighter. Where my dad was a street fighter. He used to get picked on apparently a lot, and he was the last man standing. And so I think that's what caught the leader's eye on him was, hey, they call them mascots. So we were like, we got to go get that guy and get him on our side. So that's what they did, age 13. So his life changed dramatically, for himself, because I don't think he's a bad person or anything like that. I think that he had a very traumatic upbringing. I found out after doing some research that he was, I didn't believe it when he told me that. And then I started writing this story, and then I called him again, and I was like, I need to get a little more validation. I need to understand this a little bit more. He gave me some more, but I felt like he was resistant. He didn't want to really share, like, she's going somewhere with this, and I don't know if I want to share all of that. My dad's passed. Getting past my father, he went from Catholicism to Jehovah's Witness, and I honestly believe that because reason why he did that was when you are part of this particular mafia, it was the White Fence Gang was the name of this mafia, Mexican mafia, and I guess that's called blood in, blood out. Like a mafia where you don't leave the gang. You don't just decide one day, hey, I'm going to go, peace out. It's been fun. It's been fun.
We call it tenure.
Yeah.
No, not the good kind of tenure.
Not the good kind. No, you don't, but he definitely, if you guess you're in, blood out, that's a pretty serious tenure. I'm trying to shorten this and not go down the whole path, but.
That's okay. You're leading up to the day that you were injured.
Yeah. And so I think all of the things, he had a family in Tokes. There was 3 of us, and I was newborn. And I believe from 1950 to 1966, when I was born, in 66 is when he's like, okay, well, we're going to go. So then he became a JW. I believe he hid behind this religion to hide from them because, he took us off grid and we traveled all over the place. But I don't think the anger ever left him. I know that because I grew up in this house, and me and my brother kind of got the worst of it. He really lashed out. He was very physical, violent. He was emotional. He was also mentally violent. And he very manipulative kind of thing. Anyway, the day it happened, I guess he was having one of those days, and came home early. I was 5, and there was a little boy who lived next door, and we lived on a farm where there was nobody around. So we didn't have neighbors. We had like a mile away, you could see a house, like down in the distance somewhere. One of the little boys came home with my sister, and 2 years older, and just to wait until his dad got home. We were in the tent. My sister went to get snacks. My dad came home, found out that I was in the tent alone with the 7-year-old little boy. And I guess he lost it. So the tent went flying. All I remember is we're playing Duck, Duck, Goose, and I heard these heavy footprints, and I know that kind of energy from him because he's done it. I could tell when he's, in that place. The tent just kind of went flying, and then I blacked out. When I opened my eyes, I was laying on the ground, not in the tent, looking up at the sky. I don't remember dying or anything like that. I remember when I woke up, I felt like my body was inside of a bell, like I was kind of vibrating. Maybe the voices sounded like they were very muted, maybe even under like kind of when someone's trying to talk underwater or something. And I remember just staring at the sky, and the sky seemed to be the focus for me when I was laying there. And I do remember bits and pieces of that because it's almost like flashes of little things. I remember the sky. I was moving. All of a sudden, I saw these floating heads come in. One was my mother, but the other one I thought was my grandmother. But I found out later there was nobody else there except for my father and my mother. So whoever that mystery lady was, there was 2 ladies heads and they're all freaking out. But I remember moving past them, going up into the sky, and then, but I wasn't just like, I was moving up. Like I felt like I was moving. I could see the ground below me. I could see the farm and all of our animals. And then I just blacked out. And when I woke up again, I was being rushed on a gurney down a hallway into this kind of a sterile green room. This black mask was on and then lights out. So that was the gist, I believe, of what happened. And I call it an NDE because I've never been told you died. I've never been told that. My family, in fact, denied, or not denied, but made up a story that didn't make any sense. But I think that because my dad was hiding from this mafia, if they tell him the truth, I don't know if they had CPS back then. But from what I understand, I don't know if you can see the scar on my face. The scar kind of goes all the way up and around here, and that's where a pole hit me in the face, which is was the pole in the town. There's apparently some arteries, some pretty significant arteries that run through here, and I had 31 stitches. So I just kind of started putting all the pieces together that way. So I can never really I can't say I have a piece of paper that says that I died. But with all the things, when I came back, it was just so different. I started having a lot of experiences, supernatural experiences.
Yeah, we'll get to those in a second. Some people might ask me, why are you having somebody on the show that just was unconscious for a little while? And the reason why is I think there's more to it than that. And one of the reasons I think there's more to it than that is because of what happened in your life afterwards. But also when people are just knocked out, for those of us that have had that kind of experience, you remember something before, you eventually remember waking up. You don't remember going up in the sky and looking down on the farm, but you don't remember those kinds of things. You don't remember seeing a woman who wasn't there. And you didn't actually say you felt like you left your body, but the fact that you were going up to the sky and looking down sounds very much like an NDE to me. If you say that's what it was, I'm just fine with that definition. Okay? So you don't need to make excuses or anything else. And guess what? I don't need to either. I feel like having you on here because I think it's a very interesting story. And these kinds of things early in life can change the trajectory of our entire life. So is there anything else that you want to add to that part before we move on and talk about things that happened after?
Well, the other things that I do remember before getting to the hospital was being on my dad's lap or on his knee. Like I was laying, my head was laying. And to get to any hospital from our house was probably 45 minutes if he was really speeding through. And there was nobody else that I can remember in the car. So I can only imagine how much blood came out of a 5-year-old. Also, the Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in blood transfusions, but I would have to say that I think he kind of broke the rule because I can't imagine all of that happening and it's, everything coming out of a 5-year-old that way in such a long period of time. So I just wanted to add that little piece too. So I do remember that. I remember staring at the steering wheel because those big steering wheels back in the 70s, in this station wagon. That was the only thing, the last of it that I remember before getting to the hospital. And
the big steering wheels back in those days. No child seats. Nobody wore seat belts.
No.
They were just lap belts only. I know we used to often be standing in the car.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, back in the 60s, it was normal for a 2 or 3-year-old to stand on the front seat and hold the dashboard. So, Renee, if you could tell us just briefly, I don't know if you remember anything about the physical recovery. And if so, give us just a little bit of that. But then you can go ahead and hop into how things changed. You had mentioned, as we talked before, some paranormal ability kinds of things. So go ahead and hop into that whenever you're comfortable.
Okay. So I was in the hospital for a few days. I don't know how many days. I do remember being there, and the nurses really hated me because I didn't like needles, and if they wrapped them unattended, they were in the wall. But I remember being in this huge, it looked like a giant crib, to keep the 5-year-old inside. But I was there for a few days. And then when I came home was the first time I saw the floating head lady. She was in my room and I wasn't afraid of her. You know, I didn't know who she was, but I didn't. My mom walked in right when that happened and she said, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "The lady." And I pointed to the corner where I saw her and she said, "There's nobody there." I'm like, "Oh, well, maybe I was asleep." I had to do that a lot. I had to kind of like make things up, especially with my dad. He'll be reading a book to me, push me down on the ground for no apparent reason, just kind of like a light switched, kind of flicked. Oh, so I kind of, try to cover up. And I remember one time he did that and I was on the ground waiting for it. And I looked up because it was real quiet. And he was just standing there staring at me like, "What are you doing on the ground?" "Oh, I think I fell asleep and fell off your lap." So I had to do a lot of that with him throughout my life. And not just me, but my older brother. I had 2 other sisters, but they really didn't get messed with. My brother and I were the stronger out of the 4. So I think that's why, I don't know. My grandmother told me, well, the reason why he picks on you is because you're strong. So it started with her and then it kind of started snowballing into other things where I would know things before they would happen. I was 5, so I couldn't say that those things were happening before or after, but I definitely remember them after. I don't remember that so much before. It got to a point where it started kind of freaking them out, and I had to really be careful about what I was saying in the conversation around my parents because I felt like they were going to send me somewhere, not, away. I would tell them these experiences and they would just hand me the Bible and it's like, where do I turn to figure out how to make these things go away? Like the Bible's not going to help me. So I didn't have a great relationship with God because my dad used religion as his kind of, when somebody's going to testify that it's a relocation thing, there's a word for it. I felt like he was using it for that because he was hiding from the mafia.
But was it also kind of an excuse for his behavior?
Well, possibly because he hid a lot of things. He physically abused us, me and my brother especially, and we wouldn't go to church that day. We conveniently get to stay home. Or if the elders in the congregation there would see marks on us and they started asking questions, well, how did this happen kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
You mentioned this talking head lady, as you called her. I'm not even sure what to ask. How often did you see her?
I saw her the one time when I came back. So I saw her floating head. And then when I came back home, I saw her again. But this time she was in the room, not just hovering above me. But she didn't really even say anything. So she was just there. Fast forwarding, these experiences, they would come and go. And sometimes they would be strong and sometimes they would kind of chill out. But there was a guy, when I was 16, I was playing outside, playing street ball with the neighborhood kids. And I was so tired, I had to hurry up and get ready for dinner. And I started to undress, but the window was open and it was getting dark outside. So I panicked, like, oh, they could see me, and I turned around to go pull the blind. And there was this floating guy out my window. And he came around a lot after I saw him. And he was dressed kind of looked like he was in like one of those pea coats. I know he was floating. He we'll just call what it is. He was a ghost. So he was floating outside my window from the waist up because if not, then he would have had to been like 10 foot tall to be able to see him from the waist up. And I could see what he's dressed. I could see the hat that he had on. It was real pale looking, but he didn't say anything either. He just kind of looked. That's all he did. He kind of just looked at me and it scared me because my parents put a fear label on it. And on top of that, it started calling them demons, which really changes the trajectory of things like this because you hear of these things happening all the time. Of course, I can't prove any of this to you guys. I'm just telling you the story. So I had to just deal with it. I had to deal with even attacks. I feel like as I got older, I got tired of being afraid. So I started teaming up with mediums and paranormal groups just to kind of meet things head on and try to understand what I was experiencing, why I was experiencing it, and how to deal with it besides fear, because that's what my family were fearing it. They didn't understand it. And I been asked like, well, are you guys seeing dead people in your bedroom, Like, how come I'm the only one seeing them? So this went on my whole life until I started working with the paranormal groups. I worked with them for a couple of years, but it helped me not be afraid. And it helped me help other people like me, which became my goal. So I didn't do a lot of paranormal work after that because the paranormal people, they just want EVPs that they can, I have a whole load of EVPs. I was on my ghost story because they thought I had an EVP and it had evidence of spirit activity. And every time I did the paranormal group thing, they always wanted me to go because I always got the EVPs, I guess, because I can communicate or they're communicating with me.
You mentioned that you had learned a lot about the why. Tell me what you've learned. Why is this sort of thing happening to you and at such a young age?
Well, I started going into NDE circles because I was very attracted to that. I started learning about near-death experiences, but I hadn't really chopped up what happened to me until later. That this has got to be part of the NDE. And you hear this a lot too. I worked really closely with Terry Daniels, the Afterlife Awareness Conference. She's a good friend of mine. We would talk about this, and she would recant some of the things that the others would be talking about that had NDEs. And going across the veil is the only thing that really sums it up. We've stepped out of this reality and into another one. Some people come back with very, very vivid stories and accounts, and others, I think everybody's a little bit different, and I know their stories are always different, but always miracles. To me, I'm going to call them miracles because these things that are happening are not the norm. I experience it all the time. I'll tell you about, to me, this is a miracle. This is the kind of thing that happens to me all the time. It blows my mind. I wrote my memoir, A Walk Back to God, because I left God in the dust. I was an atheist. And even during all those times where I was doing paranormal work and trying to figure myself out, I never went to the dark side. I always kept myself right on the line. I never stepped over into one or the other. And so at 60, in January, I turned 60. I wrote 60,000 words of my memoir in 60 days at the age 60. So really unusual because I just knocked this stuff out, right? And once I started, it was hard to stop. It's all I did every day. I just knocked it out. Okay, so I typed the end, and this is again the title of the book, A Walk Back to God, because I don't do scripture. I memorize scripture. I don't go to church. I have gone to church, but I don't do the whole church thing. So I go outside the day after I finish writing. I go outside I leave my place to go run an errand, and this note falls from the crack of my door. It was just a handwritten note. Actually, I have it. Handwritten note, and I opened it, and it said John 1:1, and it was a scripture because I'm not a scripture person. I thought, yeah, whenever some church person put that on everybody's door, right? And so I almost threw it away. But something stopped me. I put it in my pocket and I ran my errand and I came back and I reached into my pocket and I was like, oh, that's right. This is here. So I opened it up and I read it and it said John 1:1. So I don't know. Are you a scripture person?
A little bit, but I don't know that I have that one memorized. So tell me what it is.
So John 1:1 says, in the beginning, the Word was with God and the Word was God. Okay, and I just finished 60,000 words about a walk back to God.
I should have known that one, by the way, because now that you say it, yeah, I know it now.
Oh, it gives me chills. It's like, wow. But it's this kind of thing that happens a lot. I could tell you a whole lot of stories. Where does this come from? And what should I be doing with it? And so I'm into scripture all the time now. I'm reading scripture every day. I'm journaling scripture. I'm asking questions about my life, and then I'm allowing the book, the Bible, to just help me navigate through whatever I'm going through. So I've been very, very close to God and the Bible ever since I wrote that story.
So I had asked you a while ago about the why, and maybe that's part of that why. But also I'm curious more about, why do you think that those paranormal things were happening, did you have something to gain from it, something to learn from it, in other words?
I think that the paranormal things that were just happening, not the things that I was seeking out, right? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, starting when you were 5 years old after this accident.
Well, that's a really good question. I haven't really sat and thought about that.
Well, when you turn 61, maybe that'll be the thing to do.
Well, what I feel like right now is I obviously have something that I'm supposed to be doing here. I was saved. I think I'm going to call it saved. Okay. Bleeding out for a 45-minute drive after being smacked in the face and 31 stitches later. I can't imagine how I didn't die. Really die. Like, I don't know how I could have been saved from that. Doing research about it was like I went to all the AIs, what could this, could I possibly been saved from this? And, they all kind of said, well, it was kind of their fault. So I'm not going off of the AI. I'm just going to chalk it up as I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be doing something. Maybe I just found out that that's what I'm supposed to be doing at 60, because ever since I hit 60, everything's changed. My whole demeanor has changed. Not just about God, just about life. I feel like I've got something to do. I don't know what that is. I ask him all the time, like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing?
So I'm going to make a recommendation for you on that one. In my experience, how that works is we need to figure it out ourselves and then go to him and say, is this the right thing or is this the wrong thing? I tend to get more answers that way than just an open book. Like, give me 3 paragraphs on what I'm supposed to be doing now. Some of us aren't very good at receiving that kind of inspiration.
Well, I think that the story itself, it was hard to tell the story because it's not a feel-good story, not by a long shot. It's a memoir, but I changed a few things. I changed the timelines around a little bit, so it couldn't be like a memoir, but 98% of the things that I wrote about happened to me. But the story and the things that are shaping in my life, if I was to say how close am I, God, to my mission, I'd say I'm pretty close to what I'm supposed to be doing. It just probably took me a really long time to just get here, or 60 was the magic number. I don't know, but
Story's still being written, sounds like. You've looked and done a little studying about NDEs with other people. Give me an idea of what you take away from that. Because if there's not a lot that you were able to get from yours, maybe you can pick up some things from other people's NDEs that apply to you. What do you think those might be?
I would say one of the main things is their experiences that they have that are, I don't know what the word is, but I don't want to say irregular, sort of irregular. I don't want to say extraordinary, but I think it can fall into those areas. People come back with from what I've seen, I don't know other people's, but it seems that they come back with a clarity that they maybe didn't have before, an understanding about things and how things work here that they didn't have before. Spiritual circles, I thought for a long time didn't involve God, but they always did. So my takeaway is these people now have an extraordinary chapter to their life, and how they use it is really it's up to them, because we're still all free will. I used my time, whatever I did with my life. It took me a really long time to find spirituality, and try to use what I had positively. There's a lot of people who I think can go into the wrong direction, but it seems like a common thread. It seems like, maybe you can tell me because you talk to a lot of people. NDE people don't typically take what they have now that they didn't have before and go to a dark place with it. It seems like they always seem to stay in the light. Do you think that is true?
Yeah, for the most part, that is really true. And I think part of why people like to listen to these stories and why I like to listen to them is because even if I don't have an NDE, I can learn from some of the things that you and other people learn from your NDEs. I can learn about love. I can learn about what people call the love of God. I can gain strength in the fact that people who have had NDEs have no fear of death anymore. Why is that? Why should I fear death If someone who has died and come back has no fear of death, then I don't need to have fear of death either.
Right. And I don't know if I was,
You don't?
no, I'm ready. I'm ready whenever he's ready to call me, call me home. But I have no fear of it. I don't go out and do things that are reckless, but I don't fear death. Not at all. Not even a little.
What do you think it's going to be like when it finally is your turn? In 30 years from now, when it's your turn, 40 years from now.
I have to say that I think about this a lot. I think about it a lot. I hear NDEs. Okay, Howard Storm. Have you know how that story about Howard Storm?
He's been on the show.
Yeah. Oh, he was one of the first NDEs, and I was like, wow. I really never forgot his story. Obviously, if everybody knows who Howard Storm is, you can kind of guess, okay, well, that's why it happened that way, because the way his lifestyle was. Every single day I have the opportunity to wake up and do something and be the best person that I can be. But the world around us will always come crashing down going, no, you can't. No, you're not good enough. So I always think about how great it'll be just not having to contend with the heaviness of the reality of being here on this planet and all the negativity that's here that we're all daily kind of trying to get through each day on our own, just staying positive, just staying a positive frame of mind. It's not easy. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I look forward to not having to do that anymore. And of course, obviously seeing my family.
And you're right. And it is not easy. It definitely isn't. We'll put a link in the show notes if people want to check out your books, because you have the memoir that you mentioned and also a novel, which I think looks really interesting. So people can look those up. And I'll tell you what, you get to have the last word. Leave us with some kind of a message of hope in this troubled world that's going to help us not only have hope, but have a better day today, because they listened to Renee.
Oh, man, that's a lot of pressure.
That's a ton of pressure. And I didn't warn you about that.
You didn't. I don't have a canned response or nothing. What do I have to tell people today to stay positive? I would say if you can manage that on a daily basis, being kind and positive that's very challenging. It doesn't matter how nice you are. It doesn't matter what kind of person you are. As soon as you get behind the wheel of the car, you could be the best person in leaving the house, and you just, get in the car and it's game over. I'm speaking from me specifically because, there's a lot of negativity around us all the time. Hang on to something that you can, snap back to bring yourself back around and not stay focused in the negative.
Especially when you feel it coming out in yourself. Because we all have a little road rage under the surface here someplace when we're in the car. You said that you recently started reading scripture. What is standing out to you? What kinds of things are really like, wow?
I hope this doesn't, I'm going to say this as a precursor. I hope this isn't received negatively because there's a lot of controversy that I've read. But when I ask God for help, we can all say prayers and we can say it out loud. So what I started doing, especially after finding out scripture, which I've memorized, like I told you before, I never memorized scripture. Well, I memorized that one. I probably will never forget that one.
John 1:1, I'll never forget now.
Yeah. And so what I started doing right after that happened was, so I used to do, when I was telling you paranormal stuff, I used to do tarot and I used to do divination and stuff like that. I never did it for a futuristic result because I feel like we're all free will and that's always been my basis. It's like, it's more of a guidance that I'm looking for and that's it. So I threw all of that stuff away. I don't have any of those things anymore. I will never buy any of those things. So I had a Bible that I bought for myself years ago that I just never picked up. And it's just been sitting on my nightstand and just never being touched, just dusty. So I started asking questions to God and even asked a question to God, like, is it okay for me to use this book this way to get some answers about some of the directions that I'm in and I want to navigate. Everything has been spot on. I mean, it's it's literally kind of freaky how exact the scripture. I happened to just open the book and look to the page and look to the scripture, and it's explaining my question perfectly. So it's helping me get acquainted with the stories, because when I first started reading the Bible, I started at Genesis and I'm asleep before I get, past it. The book is, I don't think the Bible is designed to be a read book. There's information in the book that we reflect on and interpretate, right? We are interpreting what the scriptures are saying. And I think that there's a lot more to the Bible than people think. And so I've been very excited every night. I'm excited to go and pick it up and be closer to God. And it has a whole different meaning now for me.
I really appreciate you sharing all this, Renee. And we're all on this journey. We're all trying to learn from each other, trying to learn from scripture, trying to learn from other sources. So, what? We can be better people now. We can be better prepared for the future.
Absolutely. That's all we can do. Wake up today and start again, right?
Thanks again for listening and sharing this podcast. Don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button and sign up for our newsletter at roundtripdeath.com. If you want to share your near-death experience, or if you have questions or comments about the show, send an email to eric@roundtripdeath.com. Until then, I wish you everything good that you're looking for in this life and the next.